And welcome to Rush Limbaugh, the television show. It's day 50 of the raw deal, the Clinton presidency, halfway through the honeymoon period. What are we doing on our show tonight? We're doing broadcast excellence. Specifically, can't we all just try to get along, folks? This is Rodney King, and we've struggled with this decision really for about a week. Whether or not to play some or all of the famous video which shows his encounter with the cops. We've decided that we are going to play a portion of the video over and over and over again, a portion that you haven't seen much. This is our new Attorney General. Well, she almost is. She's going through her confirmation hearings. Yesterday, the confirmation hearings for Janet Reno were so dull that C-SPAN was even thinking of not televising today's. Now, that's dull. If C-SPAN thinks it's that's dull. This, ladies, oh, look at this. You may not, as we tape this, the audience in the studio may not know this. A federal judge has ruled that she and her husband are violating the law by not conducting the health care task force meetings in public. The lawsuits have worked. We have details, and we also have some special super secret goodies in our D segment, typified there by our question mark. A couple of interesting things headline-wise in the newspaper today. And we see the first headline. This is a Pat Buchanan column that ran today in the New York Post. Buchanan makes the case that we cannot save Russia. He makes the case that they have a $1 trillion economy over there. So what good is sending them 20 million going to do? It's like doing a bake sale for the Russian economy. So Buchanan makes a case. So the New York Newsday decided that they had a different idea how to bail Russia out. Take a look at this headline. Rush to rescue Russia. The hell I am. I am not, my friend, no pun, or no offense meant here, but I am not. I've just worked very hard to earn what I have, and I'm not sending any of it to the Soviet Union. Now, another thing, folks, we like to celebrate policies when they work. Government policies so often fail, and many people are disappointed. But I want to share with you, and I want tonight to tip my hat to New York City. The policies that have been implemented here for years and years and years are working. These policies, the liberal bastion here is New York City, and these policies of high taxation, high personal taxes, and high corporate taxes, making it tough to live here, making it tough to do business here, are beginning to work. In the last 5 years, 1.5 million New Yorkers have left. 1.5 million, twice as many people are leaving as are moving in. Now, there are 727,000 known new arrivals in New York, known. These 727,000, though, don't misunderstand, these are not Americans. These are not people from around the country deciding to move here. These are people from foreign countries who are falling for the big lie. So, New York City and Mayor Dinkins, you have been gunning for this. You have wanted this to happen. And the thrill of government policies and liberalism driving people out and running them away is working. At, let's see, 5 years and 1.5 million live. What is it, another 8 or 10 years? And we ought to get the city down to a number of manageable people, and it may be savable if we just keep these liberal policies intact a little bit longer. We have the rest of our show coming up right after this. Don't go anywhere. Rodney King video on the other side of this. All right. Now folks, this next segment is admittedly a tough one for us because we run the risk here of angering some people. But you can't really do a show about issues, and that's going to be a controversial show. It's going to be controversial because I am going to tell you what I think. And I'm not just going to kind of, hey, you know what, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. I'm going to do it with bravado and confidence. But this is one of these issues that I really think is getting out of hand. We're losing this real fast. It's the Rodney King case, all of this stuff going on in Los Angeles with our criminal justice system. Now, leading into it, I want to share with you a quote from the woman, Janet Reno, who I showed you at the beginning of the show. She is to be our next Attorney General. Here is a quote from her. This is her judicial philosophy. My highest priority is to protect the rights of the accused, not to convict the guilty. Now, when you first hear that, when you hear that, you say, well, that's exactly what's wrong with our criminal justice system. We're more concerned about the rights of people who are not obeying the law and people who are taking our society down the road of anarchy than we are concerned about convicting those who are breaking the law. But if you apply that quote to what's happening in Los Angeles right now, don't you find that that's not all that bad? If she's true to her word, then her concern right now ought not be with Rodney King at all, but with these 4 cops. Her concern ought to be protecting their rights, should it not? And I think everybody's for that. Want to protect the rights of these cops? Is that not? Now, what's happening? What is happening with these cops? This case, once again, is being tried on television. I don't know if you've seen Nightline lately, but there have been a couple of shows lately. Last night, Tuesday night show, dealt with some civil rights leaders and what they think and what they expect. And this stuff is inciting riots. I mean, there's no other way around it. These civil rights leaders are out there pretty much laying the groundwork for another eruption out there. Then they had on Nightline on Monday night one of the jurors from the first trial, Dorothy Bailey, who said something absolutely just profound. And we're going to show you these quotes, and we're going to play Dorothy Bailey from Nightline on Monday night in just a moment. The trial of these cops for the second time now is taking place on TV, and I have a question for all of you, and I want you to seriously think about this. How many of you could come to the right decision? How many of you could reach a verdict that is just by virtue of what you've seen on TV? None of you can. I can't. You can't. Nobody could come to the right decision. Nobody could render the right verdict by virtue of what has been shown on TV. In any case, unless the trial's televised, and this trial's not. Therefore, the only people who know what's going on and who can make an informed decision are the people in that courtroom. I think it's interesting to point out that the jurors from the first trial, despite all that's happened, would not change their mind. It'd be easy to do it, too. Boy, would they get rid of a lot of problems. A lot of harassment would just go away if they would say, hey, you know, we blew it. We should have said guilty. But they didn't. They were accused of being racist and all kinds of rotten things, but they stand by their verdict. We are trying people in the media, and we are demanding a certain outcome, certain people are, or we're going to not like what we get, and we're going to go ahead and not accept the verdict. The Rodney King trial, first one, the trial of 4 cops, in most people's minds, and by the way, since this is being tried on TV, it's about time there was a little balance, so we're going to enter the case here on this show tonight. And that's what I want to get to next, and that's the Rodney King video. You saw over and over again 15 seconds of this video where he was being clubbed and beaten relentlessly. And you were led to believe, I mean, for a year and a half we all saw this. We were repulsed by it. We were sickened by it. We couldn't believe that this could happen in America. And we demanded a verdict of guilty. It was only 15 seconds of it. Well, I've seen the whole video. And I want to show you parts of it, a part of it, that you haven't seen. Maybe. You may. It's been shown, but not very much. And to replicate the way this video has been shown to the country, the 15 seconds of horror, we've taken the beginning of this. We've done what's called looping it. We've taken the first, 2 or 3 seconds of this and just going to show it to you over and over and over again. And I want to tell you what you're going to see here. This is the beginning of the whole incident. This is when Rodney King has been asked to get out of the car. He's on the ground, and the cops are surrounding him. I want you to watch this, and watch it. Surprised? You've seen that before? Maybe a little, but you haven't seen it very much. Watch it again. Watch it some more times. We got a lot of ground to make up here on this video. Watch this again, folks. right, we got to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to explain why this is crucial in the context of this trial going on. Plus, we'll have for you some of the comments from a first trial juror and some civil rights leaders in Los Angeles with what they're demanding the outcome be in this trial. Back right after this. Don't go away.
Can we get along?
Well, Rodney, we're trying to. We really are. Now, I want to, ladies and gentlemen, explain to you something about why I chose that part of the tape to show you, other than just the fact that you haven't seen it. The trial that's going on now is a civil rights violations trial. This is a federal trial, and I think it's important to remember that these charges have been brought by the George Bush Justice Department. A Republican Justice Department brought these charges again against these 4 cops. And it's important to note that because the civil rights leaders out there are running around talking about how there's not a fair game going on when it comes to the prosecution and trial of white people and cops, people in positions of authority. What they have to prove in this case, the prosecution has to prove in a civil rights violation trial that those cops had it in their minds that their reasoning for their behavior was to violate Rodney King's civil rights. They have to prove, that's why this is going to be a tough case, they have got to prove that those cops were actually saying, I am going to violate Rodney King's civil rights. That means they're going to have to get inside those officers' heads. That's a very difficult thing to do. I don't even know of a psychic that can do it every day. But they're going to have to try to prove it to this jury. Well, if they're going to have to get inside these guys' heads, these cops' heads, I think it's important that you see what was causing their actions in the first place. Rodney King gets up off the ground and lunges at a cop after being told to stay down. I'm convinced if he'd have stayed down, nothing would have happened to him at that point if he would have just submitted and been handcuffed. But he gets up and lunges at the cop, and you haven't seen that. They don't show you that. But this show has just shown you that. And what you don't see, if we had time, we'd show you again. He tries to get up again. He doesn't lunge at the cop again, but he tries to get up again. Now, I think it's understandable that the cops, after having tasered him, that's juice, and any cop will tell you that if you taser somebody and they don't go down, that they're on something. That's what the manual says. You don't have time to ask there. You're dealing with somebody that maybe you can't control or you don't think. Now, why am I telling you this? You think, my gosh, Rush, you're being unfair. No, if we're going to try this case on TV, folks, then we're going to get in the game here. And we're going to show all the other sides of the evidence that you haven't seen for, these many 2 years that you've been watching Rodney King get beat, because it was 2 years ago that it happened practically. The trial took a year before it happened. Now, let's go to some of the comments that have been made. First off, I want to go to Patricia Moore. She is head of the Compton City Council. She's a member. That's her picture. I'm sure you've seen her on TV. This is what she said on Nightline the other day. If indeed those officers walk away free and not found guilty, and those LA 4 young men are found guilty, you're going to have chaos on your hands. Now, Ms. Moore, suppose the officers are not guilty based upon the evidence, which we don't know. We're not there. We can't come to this decision on television. And we certainly can't come to this decision because of what you tell us we must do. And what if those 4 guys who beat up Reginald Denny are guilty? Reginald Denny, has he still recovered? Rodney King's walking around at least asking, can we get along? Reginald Denny is still beaten to a pulp. Look how long he was in the hospital, for crying out loud. To try to draw some kind of similarity between these 2 cases, hard to do. Here's John Mack, LA Urban League. He said on Nightline the other night, and indeed, if one or all of those young men in the Denny beating were guilty of beating Denny, then, well, I don't think that there are too many people saying that they should go free. But, by the same token, none of us feel that those 4 police officers should go free. Well, maybe you don't, and maybe I don't, and maybe nobody in this audience does, but it's what that jury thinks, Mr. Mack, not what you think. And it's not what Ted Koppel thinks, and it's not what CNN thinks, and it's not what the court channel thinks, and it's not what I think. It's not what anybody but that jury thinks. And you can't sit here and tell the American people that they are seeing everything that the jury is seeing and hearing everything the jury is seeing in the way the jury is seeing it. Now, our judicial system is precious. It's what holds us together. And it cannot be intimidated and threatened by these hidden calls for riots if people don't get their way. Dorothy Bailey was a juror on the first trial. Tasteful, refined, classy lady. She was asked if she was made to consider any consequences of her verdict before she made the verdict in the first trial. Now listen to this answer, folks. Listen to this.
There was also an instruction given to us by the judge, I think it was on the very first page, that said, you must make your decisions based upon the law, applying the law to the evidence, regardless of consequences. And that's what we did.
Regardless of consequences. You don't make your decision as a juror based on whether you think the city's going to burn, or whether Patricia Moore from Compton's going to be upset, or whether John Mack's going to be upset, or whether Jesse Jackson's going to be upset, or whether Maxine Waters is going to be upset. You follow the law, you follow the case, you follow the judge's instructions. And that's what's going to happen in the second trial, if we're lucky. We'll be back with more right after this. Don't go away. Okay, now, just a couple more things about this, because I don't want to leave anything untied, and I don't want to leave any confusion out there. It's not really any police manuals that if you taser a suspect and he continues to come at you, that it means he's on something. It's just a common sense thing that has been learned, but it's not in any manual. And let's not forget this about what Rodney King was doing. He was endangering an entire community, driving 100 miles an hour, violating the law, a high-speed chase for a long, long time. He was already violating the law and had violated the law on several previous occasions, and this was known. And contrast that to Reginald Denny, who was just driving through town. Wasn't even a criminal, folks. And the people out there are trying to draw a comparison and to make it analogous, Rodney King to Reginald Denny. There's no comparison whatsoever there. Now, we never like to end the show on a solemn, heavy note. We have some humor. We have some good times. Our man in Washington, ladies and gentlemen, attended a recent birthday party, 90-year birthday party, 90-year-old, for Strom Thurmond. Our man in Washington wanted to find out what Democrats think of the latest deficit reduction plan, the bake sale. So he went to the party and he asked them. Here are some answers. Take a look.
But there were a few documents that didn't make the call.
This is the party. That's Dole. There's our man in Washington sneaking in a trash dumpster. Getting out of it now. Here's his assignment sent to him by me.
America's children have been having a lot of bake sales and giving the proceeds to President Clinton to help reduce the deficit. Do you think that's a good idea?
Sure it is. I think everyone ought to know they can participate in some way. It may not sound like much, but that's the right spirit. It's a good lesson for them to learn.
Well, I think it's a wonderful idea because it has a kind of symbolism about it.
But it's symbolic, and symbolism is extremely important as we try to reduce the deficit. Anything any of us can do to
reduce the deficit.
It's a good idea.
Well, I don't know what the contributions are for, but I would think they could probably find a better use than donating it to Bill Clinton. Depends on how much they bake. Use it in the private enterprise system. It'll be better off.
Thank you. Now, there you have it. These guys admit it. The Democrats think it's a good idea. Send in everything you've got, folks. They'll love you even more. Don't blame them for spending too much. No, go ahead and send your money in. As we pointed out the other night, at the current rate that they raise money with bake sales, it'd take 2.8 million years. And here are these guys admitting that symbolism's a good thing. Symbolism accomplishes nothing, like these bake sales are going to accomplish nothing toward the goal of deficit reduction. And there's good old Howell Heflin, the old Senator Foghorn Leghorn sitting there. I'll tell you, son, it's a good idea. Keep sending them on. Now, hold it, a math lesson. We want to put this up. Here's what we ought to be teaching these students. Teach them math with these bake sales. Here it is. Jill's third grade class had a bake sale and sent the money to President Clinton to help pay off a national debt. If a national debt is $4 trillion, how many more bake sales would they have to pay for a $30,000 jogging track? Now, that's what we ought to be teaching students in school, mathematics, instead of ridiculous deficit reduction schemes. Bye, we're out of time.